Hey everybody, it's Anthony from North 40 Fly Shop here in Lewiston. Today we are going to be tying the Kamikaze Sculpin. It's a pattern we got here in the shop earlier this summer, and it's been a real big producer for me. Mostly swinging it on my trout spey for trout and smallmouth bass, and like I said, I caught a ton of fish this summer on it. So materials on this fly: we are using a Umpqua TMC 5262 hook in a size 6. We're going to be using a 140 Ultra Thread tan. And then we have our squatchy dumbbells. This is the Fly Project, and this is a 5.5 millimeter size. Fly Project Flash and Grab tinsel in gold. Grizzly rabbit strips. Minnow belly ice dub, and Mallard Flanks dyed wood duck. We've got a couple little tools that we're also going to be using here. We're going to have our dubbing wax, dubbing brush, dubbing loop spinner, and then also one of these little clips about 1 inch long for putting our rabbit hair into our dubbing loop to make our head. So let's get started. First step, just get our thread started on the hook. Get a couple wraps on there, we're good to go. And then we're going to bring it forward. So we're going to put a set of lead eyes on here. We're going to be using the squatchy dumbbell eyes from Fly Project. These are the 10 pack, 5.5 millimeter. And so we'll just set those eyes right on top of there. It's about 2 eye lengths back from the hook. And to get those locked on there, we're going to do a couple diagonal wraps across the top of the eyes. And then we'll straighten those eyes out with our fingers. Just do a couple diagonal wraps the opposite way, so we can straighten those eyes out a bit. And once we got, switch up, do diagonal wraps the other way. And then we're going to do a couple wraps just around the base of the eyes without actually going around the shank of the hook. And then again, just diagonal wraps, trying to really lock these into place. And once we got enough wraps on there that we feel good, we're going to take our thread back to the point of the hook, and then we'll just take these eyes and just flip them to the bottom like that. Next, we're going to be putting on the Fly Project Flash and Grab tinsel. The color that we're going to use is gold. And we don't need to use a whole bunch of this because we're going to double it back on itself. So you really only need 6-7 strands for this part. And we will cut those 4 inches, 5 inches long or so, about that much. And then we'll just push these into the thread at about the midpoint of the tinsel, and then bend it over on itself. Grab that with your left hand, and while pulling down on your bobbin, pull those to the top of the thread. And what that's going to do, that's just going to lock those right into place. So we will fold that tinsel back over, and then just do a couple wraps, keeping that tinsel on the top shank of the hook, going backwards till we get to the barb of the hook. We're just going to leave this long right now. We'll cut it at the end once we get our rabbit fur on there. Next, we're going to be using the rabbit strips in Grizzly. And you want this to be approximately 2 hook shank lengths. So our first measurement is going to be 1 hook shank length, and then our next one is going to be about right to the back of those eyes. So we'll part the hair, keep our part, and then give that rabbit fur a snip right on the flesh. So we'll set that back on top there, and then figure out our tie-in point for this back half of the rabbit, and just get it parted right there. And we'll get this rabbit fur just a little bit wet. That way it cooperates with us a little bit better and doesn't want to fold back on itself. We'll tie right into that flesh, trying not to get too much fur on there. 3-4 wraps. And then just fold that extra rabbit fur back for the time being. Next we're going to go into dubbing the body on this. We're going to use ice dub in minnow belly. You can do a dubbing loop if you want. I'm just going to dub this straight onto the thread. And I like a little fatter body, so we're going to do a fair amount of dubbing on this. We're going to go up to just about right behind the eyes, and then we'll bring that extra piece of rabbit fur back over. And we'll tie that in, that little tag end we've got left. Okay. Next step, we have Mallard Flanks dyed in wood duck. We're going to put just a little bit of hackle around this collar here, and with this, you can see we got the fluff, and then we've got the good fibers up top. So I'm just going to strip this fluff off of here. And then we have our main beam and the fibers coming up. So we're going to find the top of that main beam and give it a little bit of a pinch, and then just fold those fibers back. So it should leave us a little triangle like that, and that's going to be our tie-in point. Just drop that right on top of the hook. A couple wraps to lock that in, and then we'll take our excess here, fold that back, and do a couple more wraps just to really lock that feather into place. Snip off that little tag end, and then we will hold the feather. I always hold the feather straight up. Get my fingers a little bit wet. Try and fold those fibers back as much as I can. And we're just going to do a light little collar here, so we don't need to do maybe more than 2 wraps. It's up to you if you want a heavier collar. I don't like to see all that feather on there, so we'll just do 2 wraps. Just get that thread, work it through there. Tie that stem off. Get a couple wraps. 2 wraps is good. Cut your stem of that feather, and then got some kind of stragglers here, wild bit. We're just going to fold those back, and then again 1 or 2 wraps, just lock those into place so that they're going backwards on the flies. Next step is we're going to make a head out of this, out of the rabbit strips again. And the trick to this, we're going to make a dubbing loop, but first we're going to cut the rabbit fur off of the flesh, off of this piece of hide here. So we get our rabbit fur sticking out perpendicular from the hide, and then we've got one of these little binder clips. So we'll just slip that on there, get it down close to the hide, locked in like that, and then you just cut right up that hide, taking that rabbit fur off of the hide. And we're going to do 2 clumps of that, so I'm going to put in a dubbing loop right now. We'll just go 3 times around the shank of the hook, 3 times around our loop, and then we can take our thread up towards the eye of the hook. And what we'll do, just hit this with a little bit of loon dubbing wax, and then we'll open up that dubbing loop, stick that rabbit fur in there, and then open up that clip, and that's going to hold it right there. I'm going to grab one more clump of this rabbit fur. like we did before. Just get that rabbit fur sticking out from the hide. Put that clip on there again. Hold on to that rabbit fur. Didn't get as much as I wanted to. There we go. And then just cut that hair right off of this hide, trying not to cut the hide. Alright. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to spin this in our dubbing loop and we'll get it all straightened out at the end. I'll try to get this hair going the same way as the other hair. Just don't open your dubbing loop too much, otherwise you'll lose the hair that you do have in there. Okay, so as our hair is sitting in our dubbing loop like that, we're just going to give it a spin. Get that dubbing loop closed off there. I'm just going to take my bodkin and pull that little mallard feather right out of there. And we'll hit dubbing brush a little bit, try and release some of that trapped rabbit fur because we want it to stick out as much as we can get it to stick out. Now get your fingers wet and we'll just fold that rabbit back on top of itself because we're going to spin it around here. And then just start wrapping, making sure to fold that rabbit fur back as you go. We'll go over the eyes, in front of the eyes, back over the top of the eyes, behind the eyes, under the eyes. You just want to cover up as much as you can around those eyes so you don't have bare hook shank or you don't have a bunch of thread wraps sticking out. We're going to keep going forward on that until we get to where our thread sits. Then we'll hold our dubbing spinner up and take our thread and go right over the top of that thread that we have in our dubbing spinner. About 3 times is all you need. Snip that dubbing loop. And then if you want to get really picky and comb all this back, that's up to you. It's all going to mat down in the water anyway. So we'll pull out the whip finish, tie it off, 3/4 spins, give her another one. Cut our thread. And then the tinsel that we were looking at before, at about the back of the hide here, that's where we're going to cut our tinsel. So it's going to be a little shorter than the fur, but it's going to be even with the hide. You just get your scissors in there, snip her off, and that's it. Kamikaze Sculpin.